There was always an electric feel in the air when Elvis Presley was on stage. But one night, the king of rock and roll shocked everyone, even Priscilla, who was married to him at the time. What did Elvis do that made everyone so shocked? Also, why did his wife look embarrassed? Come with us as we talk about this amazing event. You won't believe how embarrassing it was for Priscilla. Due to his fame, Elvis Presley's life moved so quickly that it was hard for many people to imagine. Born and raised in Tupelo, Mississippi, he was poor. His parents were working class and didn't have much money. Music was always around him. At church, he heard gospel, in his neighborhood, he heard blues, and on the radio, he heard country. He put these different kinds of music together to make something new and exciting. His voice was smooth and deep by the time he was a youth. It was also different from anything else on the radio. He changed the music business forever when he went into a recording studio when he was only 19. In 1954, his song That's All Right was the start of something wonderful. People were drawn to him because of his unique style and strong voice. People were captivated by his unique stage demeanor, which had never been seen before. Teenagers were thrilled, parents were shocked, and the media was captivated. Elvis went from being unknown to a music legend in a very short time. His fame grew very quickly. You could hear, see, hear, and read about him everywhere. A lot of people signed his autographs, and his shows were sold out. He became a symbol of success in America. Being so well known did cost a lot, though. Elvis was no longer in charge of his own life. The people could now use it. He had more to do as he got better at what he did. He was always working on making movies, recording music, traveling to different places, and going to a lot of interviews and events. He didn't stop working. Every day, there were more things to do. He had to give his time and attention to his managers, the companies, and his fans. He tried to give his job his full attention, and for a while, it worked. But the truth was very clear. He didn't have time for anything else. People thought Elvis would relax after marrying Priscilla, but he didn't. He kept being famous, and he was often gone for long amounts of time, either working on films or traveling. She had been waiting a long time to marry him, and now she was waiting again as his wife. She often felt lonely and wanted his time, care, and love, even though she lived in a fancy house. Elvis was rarely at home, which was a shame. He never took his eyes off of his work, not even when he was at Graceland. The phone was ringing all the time, and people were coming and going at all times. His plan was very tight and he was in charge of everything. Even though Priscilla tried to understand, it was hard. While she waited, she saw her husband talking to his fans. They wouldn't always talk about important things for days at a time. She missed easy things like being able to talk, eat, and sleep soundly at night. They could no longer enjoy those easy things because of their fame. Elvis didn't mean to forget about his family. He did care about them. However, the way he lived made it hard for him to be the husband and father he wanted to be. It was crazy how famous he was. He spent a lot of time on music, movies, friends, and stress. He was always with other people, but he often felt alone. He gave his whole life to his job and didn't leave much time for his family or friends. As time went on, Elvis had to carry extra weight. He had a hard time dealing with all the expectations and stress. He tried hard to look perfect and make everyone happy, but he never felt at ease. Behind all the fame and attention, Elvis had a side that could never be at peace. He probably knew what he was missing when he was by himself. In what way did that event become known as Priscilla's awkward moment? What did she do to Elvis on stage? Let's start at the beginning and find out. That night, Priscilla was the center of attention. Being with Elvis Presley was not like other people. Elvis lived in a world full of music, lights, noise, and always something going on because he was the king of rock and roll. Priscilla Presley, who was married to him, had to show him off to everyone because he was always busy with shows, concerts, practices, and recordings. He wasn't fully present at home because he felt like he needed to be on all the time but also wanted to rest. Even though Priscilla knew that his fame would make things hard, it was still hard. She felt like an afterthought in his life a lot of the time. They waited in the darkness while he was the center of attention. She loved Elvis very much, but she also missed the easy times when they were first living together. As he got more popular, they spent less time alone together. He was often busy with work, even when he was at home. Priscilla wanted to get his attention and show him that she was still there for him. She wanted to be the woman who had always been there for him. She did something risky one night. She didn't stay out of the way like she usually did. Instead, Priscilla went to Elvis's show with the goal of joining the other women he often brought up on stage for a kiss. She wasn't jealous, but she did want to stand out and get away from their normal routine. It was more important to her to be in his world than to keep him in hers. She knew that she had to look a certain way for her plan to work. She chose a beautiful black dress with a bold low-cut back and a hood that hid her face and gave her an air of mystery. She looked like she wasn't wearing much because of the dress and the way her long hair covered the straps. It was dangerous, but it was the right kind of surprise to catch Elvis off guard in a good way. The clothes she wore weren't just for show, they sent a message that she was still alive, full of energy, and ready to share the stage with him fully. Priscilla was waiting for the right time when the show began. The part where Elvis called women on stage for a kiss was something she knew about the show. Priscilla got in queue, happy and worried at the same time. The crowd was loud and full of life. As each fan got close to Elvis, he kissed them and cheered. The time had finally come for Priscilla. As she walked towards him, she was sure of herself but worried. She was hoping for a short laugh and a kiss before she disappeared into the crowd. He should have had a sparkle in his eyes and a smile on his face to show that he was interested and pleased. But things that she thought were going to go well turned out to be rough for her. What did really happen? Being the center of attention, Priscilla was looking forward to having fun with Elvis. She thought he would kiss her quickly and laugh with her, maybe with a smile on his face. As she went back to her place, she thought the crowd would laugh and cheer. She wanted it to be a fun way to let him know she was there. Elvis had other plans, which was a shame. Something changed inside him when he saw her in the crowd. He knew right away that it was her, but he didn't do anything. He kept singing without noticing that she was there. He seemed to treat her like any other fan. The unexpected event caught Priscilla off guard because she was hoping for a fun exchange. The crowd was mesmerized by his flawless performance, which included smooth singing and dancing to his usual beat. But he also left Priscilla standing in front of the crowd, where she was getting more and more nervous. She asked him in a whisper to kiss her so she could sit down, but Elvis didn't hear her and kept performing. He chose to pay full attention to her. As part of his role, he kept performing without noticing that she was there. This was his plan to make things better. He was able to change the situation, even though Priscilla tried to catch him off guard. The audience, who didn't know who Priscilla was, started to reply as well. Fans looked up and saw a woman who was dressed in a way that made it look like she had nothing on her upper body. That look came from the fact that she was wearing a tight black dress with a low back that was hidden by her hair. There were whispers and gasps heard around the room. A lot of people leaned forward in their seats to get a better look. The crowd was interested in the brave woman who was on stage. They didn't know who she was or why she was standing so cocky in front of Elvis. Priscilla heard people talking and was shocked to hear what they said. She was laughing too hard at a joke she thought was funny. Being the center of attention wasn't as fun as she thought it would be. Everything about the scene, the dress, the tension, and the lights made her feel like she couldn't handle it. It got worse for her as she stood there for longer. Elvis still hadn't responded or let her go. She could feel how hard the people in the crowd were looking at her. Her heart was beating quickly. She could feel her face getting hot. She asked for a kiss to go back to her place, but her request was ignored. Elvis stayed cool and collected while he was playing. He had power over her, but she didn't. She knew that Elvis was the most powerful person on that stage. There were times when the surprise was meant for him, but he made it about himself. Elvis planned every move he made. He could hold a crowd's attention and make a moment last. His singing voice filled the music hall, but the fact that he didn't talk to Priscilla said a lot. He wasn't mad or embarrassed. He was just following his own rules. The crowd was amazed. Not being aware of the personal problems that were affecting his work. Priscilla tried to smile and stay still to make herself look calm. She was more nervous on the inside, though. But now she felt stuck in a situation she didn't want to be in. She had hoped for a fun moment to remind Elvis of their link. It seemed like time was moving slowly. And the crowd's lights and noise were too much to handle. Elvis didn't look like he was going to finish things anytime soon, so her plan didn't work out. He kept performing, singing every word correctly and moving with a lot of energy. He kept her close, though, even though this. He was deeply in love with a woman who stood a few feet away and was caught in the beam of a flashlight. What used to be Priscilla's confidence had turned into anxiety. What began as a joke had turned into a slight challenge between them. There were people watching, but they didn't understand what was going on. It turned into a private battle. But just as Priscilla was about to give up, a strange thing happened. Was this Elvis's plan the whole time? People in the music hall felt different after Elvis finished his song and finally paid attention to Priscilla. Everyone could feel the tension that had been building up during the show. The woman next to Elvis and the stage were the only things people in the room could see. What began as a joke turned into something important that everyone in the room was paying close attention to. Elvis turned his attention to Priscilla after he finished his song. People in the crowd paid close attention, as if the show were still going on. Elvis then leaned in and kissed Priscilla, using his famously charming smile and the right moment. The crowd went crazy when they kissed. It wasn't quick or shy, it was dramatic and flashy. Fans who had been waiting for something exciting to happen finally got it, and they clapped loudly and right away. It wasn't just a response to the kiss. It was a great way to end the story Elvis had written. Elvis was very good at turning even the most basic movements into amazing shows. Everyone in the room knew from his kiss that they were not just at a show, but at something unforgettable. However, that wasn't the end either. The crowd was still cheering, and Priscilla was still shocked by the kiss. Elvis then went back to the mic. He told everyone about her in a clear, loud voice. At that moment, the woman in the black dress was no longer a riddle. The whispers turned into loud cheers, and the crowd went wild again. The room had twice as much excitement. The crowd was thrilled when the king of rock and roll showed off his wife. Priscilla didn't think any of this would happen. She only meant to sneak up, pull a joke, get a kiss, and then go back to her place. It turned out that she was the star of the night's show, though. She wasn't just hiding in the crowd or making fun of her husband any longer. There were bright stage lights that made her aware that she was now a part of the show. As the crowd cheered and yelled, Priscilla didn't know what to do. Not only did the lights make her cheeks burn, but she also felt like so many people were watching her. On the outside, she tried to smile and wave, but she really just wanted to leave the stage. She moved her feet quickly and almost ran back down the stairs. She could feel that many people were watching her every step of the way. Not just the awkwardness of being the center of attention, the surprise kiss, or even the greeting made her feel unsteady. It was the quick shift from being the part of a joke to being the joke itself. Elvis had made the moment his own, as he always did. It made her feel good when she finally found her spot. As she got used to the quiet, the crowd's noise and lights went away. The night had come as a surprise and made people feel bad. During the evening, there was also a fun and unexpected moment shared with someone that stood out. Before we get into what she thought about this, let's go back and look at how they met, fell in love, and got married. Elvis and Priscilla's love story. In 1959, when Elvis Presley was 24 years old, he met Priscilla Beaulieu, who was 14 years old. They fell in love. Elvis was in the U.S. Army at the time and stationed in Bad Nauheim, far from the fame of Hollywood and American shows. She moved to the area with her family not long ago. Priscilla was the stepdaughter of a U.S. Air Force pilot. One night, a friend they both had asked her to a small party at Elvis's rented house. That was the start of a famous love story in the history of music. When Priscilla walked into the room, she didn't look like the kind of person who would make the world's most famous singer want to talk to her. There was something about her that Elvis liked, even though she was shy, quiet, and still in school. He was charming most of the time, but when she was around, he was kind, polite, and interested. They clicked right away, even though they were different ages. Elvis wasn't interested in people who were flashy or skilled. He found comfort in Priscilla's calm personality, and she found excitement in the way he lived. At the start of their relationship, they listened to soft music, had long conversations, and stayed up late just talking and getting to know each other. Elvis would often sing or play the piano for her. He would sometimes sit down with her and talk about his goals, his mother, and how things had changed for him since he became famous. Priscilla paid close attention, asked good questions, and never acted like he was famous. That's what made her unique. There was no need for her to brag. Her only goal was to get close to him. They only had a short time in Germany, but it was very important to them. Elvis had to return to the U.S. when his time in the service was over. It was hard to say goodbye, but he promised to stay in touch. He did this by calling, writing letters, and giving them news. When he got back to the U.S., Elvis's career took off again with movies, music, and public events. She was always on his mind, though. They didn't see each other again for 2 years. Elvis liked Priscilla when she was a girl and wanted her to be close to him. He asked her to visit him at Graceland, the name of his home in Memphis. Even though Priscilla's parents weren't sure at first, they accepted after Elvis persuaded them and set strict rules. The meeting turned into something more important. Priscilla was able to stay with Elvis's family longer as her parents grew to trust him more. Eventually, she moved in with his family. While she was in school in Memphis, she stayed out of the public eye and kept a low image. Her life at Graceland was very different from what she was used to. Late-night movie marathons, unplanned music jams, and friends coming over at any time were all normal things that happened. Elvis set his own hours, and Priscilla didn't mind because she had to work with him. She watched and listened, and over time she became a part of his daily life. However, even though she was young, she handled the chaos with ease. Elvis made sure she didn't have to deal with the bad things that came with being famous. He wanted to protect the private relationship they had built away from the public eye. Over time, their friendship got stronger. With all the attention and fame on him, Elvis always turned to Priscilla for comfort. She became his best friend and person he could trust the most. They had problems, like being different ages, being in the news, and being apart a lot because he was traveling. Even with all of these problems, Priscilla stayed true and faithful. She stood by him not because of his fame but because of who he was. They stayed close for years, even though time passed. By the time Priscilla was 21, they had been through a lot together. Elvis noticed that she had changed from a shy teen to a sure of herself young woman. He knew it was time to make a promise to her. In 1967, they got married in Las Vegas. They were 32 years old and 21 years old at the time. They didn't want the cameras to be there, so they kept the wedding simple but elegant. Only close family and friends were there. The couple moved back to Memphis and started living together as a married pair after they got married. It felt better to be at Graceland, their home. The things they did every day didn't change much. They still talked late into the night, listened to music at home, and enjoyed quiet times together. They went on trips together, spent holidays together, and made memories that only they could fully understand. A night that Priscilla will never forget. Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley's book, showed what her private life was like with the king of rock and roll. In one story from the book, there is a hero on stage that was supposed to bring them closer together but ended up being funny, sad, and memorable. She felt weak and helpless on stage, where she couldn't get away. When she saw that, she knew how quickly things could change with Elvis. He had a natural charm that could change the mood even when he wasn't talking. The same thing that drew her to him made her feel awkward in front of a crowd. She tried to brush it off, but she felt open. It wasn't a joke any longer. It had to do with being seen in a strange way. Priscilla was one of many people who were reminded at that moment. Being with Elvis meant getting used to his life, which was full of bright lights, constant attention, and public scrutiny. He always seemed to be the center of attention, even when he was alone or at home. Not only as his friend, but also as someone important to him, she had to find ways to stay in his world. In Priscilla's life, she shared many wonderful times with Elvis. In many situations, she would do something, no matter how small, to make Elvis see her, even when he was busy with other things. In this case, the night on stage was one. It wasn't her goal to look stupid or draw attention away from Elvis. She just wanted to share the lead role with him for a short time. But Elvis was always hard to guess. She made sure to stand out in more ways than one, like when she was on stage. She showed who she was through the clothes she wore by choosing risky and confident styles that made her look beautiful and mysterious. What she wore was more than just clothes. They were strong comments that got a point across. She chose each dress and fabric with the goal of making an impact that would last, even in a crowded room. A lot of people at the time didn't wear popular clothes like short, tight dresses, see-through materials, and one-of-a-kind pieces that made her stand out. There were a lot of eyes on her when she walked into a room, and she wanted Elvis to notice her the most. She didn't want to be better than everyone else, she just wanted to stand out in Elvis's eyes. Sometimes, it did exactly what she had hoped it would do. Elvis and his dad were joking around at home about him seeing another woman. They all laughed and told jokes while having fun. Afterwards, when Elvis saw Priscilla standing close in one of her beautiful clothes, he stopped making fun of her. He looked at her all the time. He liked what she was wearing in a fun way that showed both pride and a bit of protectiveness. Priscilla was glad to see him deal with it this way. He was looking at her the whole time. No amount of praise could have made the quick look and brief moment more important. It made her feel important and gave her hope that she could still impress him and get his attention. It made her feel better about herself and showed that she was more than just a supporting character in his success. It meant a lot to her to be praised for small things. Living with Elvis was hard because of his busy schedule and the constant attention from fans. To stay in touch with him, Priscilla felt like she had to do more. Even though things were hard, she kept going and always made sure to show that she was still there by being funny, dressing sexily, or doing kind things. Even though it was awkward at the time, that night on stage became a moment she would always treasure. It was a metaphor for how complicated their relationship was, sometimes nice, sometimes strange, but always complicated. When she went on stage, she was hoping to share a laugh, but what she got was an experience she will never forget. It became less painful to remember the past over time. She now feels happy about something that used to make her feel bad. She now finds the memory funny. She sees how it shows how much they love each other most of all. Two people trying to connect in a noisy world. That moment summed up perfectly what it was like to be with Elvis. The fun, the chaos, the surprising moments, and the strong need for attention were all part of it. Priscilla's efforts to talk to him, even though it didn't go well, showed how much she cared about him. She was ready to risk everything to connect with him, even if it was only for a moment. This love story didn't last long after that, though. The sad split up that made everything different. Because Elvis was always famous and under a lot of pressure, living with him was hard. She did everything she could to be close to him so that their relationship would stay strong. She often felt alone, though, because Elvis was always busy with work or with people who wanted his time. She loved him very much, but she felt like he was getting less interested in her. It looked like the space between them was getting bigger. They got married in 1967 and had their only child, Lisa Marie, in 1968. At first, having a baby brought them closer together. Elvis liked being a dad, and Priscilla liked being a mom. Their goal was to give Lisa Marie a happy and loving home. It wasn't all better after they had a child, though. Over time, their relationship began to get worse. Priscilla learned more about herself over time. She began to make choices on her own and figure out what she really wanted besides being known as Elvis's wife. Being constantly ignored wasn't what she had in mind for her future, so she knew she couldn't keep doing that. Even though she loved Elvis very much, she knew she had to stop living in his shade, even though it was hard for her to accept. They made the hard decision to end their marriage in 1973. There was no anger in the split. They were still in love with each other, but they knew they couldn't stay married. A lot of people, including them, were sad about the split. Their lives had been linked for years, and now they had to decide how to separate. One thing stayed the same after they got divorced: their love for Lisa Marie. To both of them, she was the most important thing, and she would always come first. Even though they weren't dating anymore, they continued to raise her together. Lisa Marie had everything she needed thanks to Elvis. And cared for and loved her. There was always Priscilla in her life, giving her advice and support. They worked together to make sure Lisa Marie could spend time with both her parents, which was the best of both worlds. Elvis loved her until the end, even though he was having a hard time. He still loved Lisa Marie very much. Priscilla always let Elvis hang out with Lisa Marie, their daughter. They both wanted him to be a part of her life, and she made sure he had the chance to be. She felt important when Elvis played with her and gave her gifts. He never missed a chance to spend time with his daughter, even when he was tired or sick. Lisa Marie made his life better. She was a pure source of happiness in a busy world. Everyone was very sad when Elvis died in 1977, but his 9-year-old daughter Lisa Marie felt the worst alone. Priscilla helped their daughter when Elvis died, even though they were no longer married. She did this with love and strength. She didn't give in to their sadness. Instead, she stayed strong and helped their child move on while still remembering Elvis. If you liked this video, please click the next button and like if you liked the video.